Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. My name is Jackson Mummy, and each week we'll be bringing you updated information about the bar exam and what you need to do in order to make the next bar exam your last bar exam. Ready to get started? Let's jump to it. Hey everybody, welcome. It is the last day of May, or something like that, 55 days until the July bar exam. We don't have to talk about the February results anymore because they're all in, yay. And now we get to point towards the next exam. I'm excited to be here today. We've got our esteemed panel with us. Tracy is here, Brianna is here, June's here. Amanda is on a short vacation with her family, and she will not be joining us today, but we're glad all of you are here with us. If you've not done one of these calls with us before, we are going to cover some information about things that are going on in the bar exam and a celebration bar review. And then we're going to take some questions that we've received in the past week from students. And then Tracy's going to talk about wiper blades. Wiper blades. This should be interesting. So let's go ahead and jump in with some information about what's going on in our courses. Another change that we've made. We've been inching this direction, but I want to make it more public now. We've added our coaching staff. Brianna and Amanda and Tracy have all been doing individual one-on-one coaching, writing coaching, and we've kept everybody in their own lanes. And as we've developed into this exam, it's become more obvious that we don't all have to stay in specific jurisdictional lanes. I made the decision that we were going to open up what we call staff coaching so that no matter what jurisdiction you're in, Florida, Georgia, California, or the UBE, you now have the choice to work with me, Tracy, Brianna, or Amanda. This is an extraordinarily talented group of coaches, and I really felt like we needed to make that open to everyone. Brianna, I know for you, you've been working with the time management and the writing workshop and the UBE, and now we're like, okay, teach some other jurisdictions. What do you think? How are you doing with that?
Jackson, I'm absolutely loving it. Yes, I'm the time management coach. It can be overwhelming if I let it get overwhelming, but this is probably my most favorite thing that I get to do. I love working with students and helping them achieve the success that is already within them, just accomplishing their dreams and stuff. So I love it. It's great.
We're really excited. And Brianna was one of our speakers at Bootcamp, and boy, did they love you. God, that was just incredible. So it was great to have that experience. Tracy, I know that we dumped you into the California waters, and then you got really good at swimming in other jurisdictions. And now, Judge Dawson, you got to cover them all. How are you feeling about that?
I'm looking forward to greeting students from other jurisdictions and working on basic principles of writing and getting yourself professionally ready to take this exam.
Yeah. And I know Amanda's got the same response. So the way that this is working is that if you're an existing student and you want to add coaching, you will now see what we call one-to-one coaching with a member of the staff. And you'll have the opportunity to select when you order which mentor you want to work with. Now, you may be saying, I don't know who to work with. I will tell you that it makes no difference in terms of competence. Every person that we've got working is terrific, and they're all very talented. It may make a difference in terms of time zones for you. So if that's helpful, Tracy's in the Mountain time zone, Brianna's in the Central time zone, Amanda's in the Eastern time zone. We don't have anybody in the Pacific time zone, but we're only an hour away here in Denver. And of course, I'm in the Mountain time zone as well. The other difference is that if you want to work with me, I'm glad to do that. I feel a little lonely over here, but you get 8 calls with me or 10 calls with any of the staff coaches. So you're getting a couple of extra calls if you want to work with them. And I will also say that we record all of our calls. We're using a new tool called Fireflies, and it's amazing. I love it. It's an AI tool. It gives us the video, the audio, a transcript, and a summary. I love the summary. And I get the chance to review those and look at them to make sure that I'm able to help our coaches. And then as coaches, we're all meeting to just make sure that everybody's on the same page. So there's no drop off at all, in my view. And frankly, if you've worked with me in the past, and maybe you're in a situation where you need to retake the exam, I think there's real value in working with a different coach just to get a different perspective on your work and to have a different set of eyes on it and giving you some input. You will find those links in your online course in the Upgrade Center, and you can just click on those and place your order. Again, if you're an existing student, you're going to have a couple of options here. You can make 12 monthly payments for the coaching, or you can pay a discounted single course price. If you are not registered in our course and you're hearing this as part of the podcast or watching it, you still have the option when you register to work with me or any of our other coaches. We are really expanding our coaching capability. And part of the reason we're doing this is because as we have grown over the past few years with our focus primarily on repeat and non-traditional bar takers, I think it's important that we be able to expand the opportunity for people to work one-on-one with somebody on the team. And honestly, that's just hard for me to do all of that coaching. So this gives me the chance to lighten my load a little bit. I'm really excited about it. I hope you'll check that out. If you're in our course right now, this is the time to add coaching. If you were waiting for the flag to drop, June 1st is that date. That is the time when we think you should start coaching. And the reason for that is because we want to give you the feedback in a timely way so that you can use it, right? The last week before the exam, it's a little tough to put those things into practice. I don't know if Tracy or Brianna want to comment on that, but I think this is the optimum time.
I agree. It's close enough to the exam that you're not going to lose the content and the rhythm. It helps you ramp up, I think, and get ready for the exam on the exam day. So I think this is the perfect time to do that and to work intensively with the coach and really narrow in now your work to get ready to sit on that day.
Yeah, if you're doing 10 calls over the next 60 days, that's a good pacing, I think. So that's where we are in upgrades. I also want to talk to you about a brand new product offering that we just announced this week. At Bootcamp, it became clearer to me again that performance tests are really a challenge for many bar takers and many of our students. And I know that our personal writing workshop that Brianna is doing is incredibly helpful. Students come back and they just love the fact that in a 2-session writing session, they really get this one-on-one individual attention on the mechanics and then the style and structure before they get into the in-depth coaching. The comment that we got from a lot of people was, I'd love to do that for performance tests. And frankly, we just didn't have the coaching capacity for a long time to be able to add that. But now with this roster of coaches we've got, we really do. And so I reached out to Amanda, who, for those of you that don't know, and we tout this all the time, but Amanda had one of the highest scores I've ever seen on the UBE, which includes 2 performance tests. And I asked her whether or not she'd be willing to do a 2-session performance test workshop one-on-one with students, and she agreed to do it. And we are announcing today a new product called the Performance Test Writing Workshop. Now, in this workshop, you'll be working individually with Amanda. In the first call, she'll be walking you through the mechanics of how you organize and set your time, how you work through the file and the library, what the structure of the performance test is. You don't have to do anything. This is just her coaching you up on a performance test in call number 1. Amanda will assign you a performance test to write under time conditions. You'll submit that to her, and she will walk through your writing in a second 30-minute call to help make sure that you are employing those strategies and techniques. This is a terrific way to get some intensive work on performance tests. One of 2 things that you could do after that. One is you jump into the coaching with me or one of the other coaches, and when we're doing performance tests, you now have a basis and we don't have to talk through the mechanics of it, which I think is really helpful. I know we've seen it to be incredibly helpful with essay writing. Then secondly, you might say, you know what, I got it. I understand it. I don't need any more coaching. And that's great. The cost of the performance test writing workshop is $300, same as the personal writing workshop. But in a moment of complete insanity, I think, at least for right now, I created something called a bundle. If you order the writing workshop and the performance test workshop together, instead of $600, you pay $450. This is an incentive for you to get these two workshops, and you'll see that bundle when you go to place your order. The performance test writing workshop is available. It's open now. I encourage you to jump in and get this. It's first come, first served. Once you've placed your order, you'll be taken directly to Amanda's scheduling page, and you schedule that very first call. And Brianna, we do this in the writing workshop, don't we? People just get right in and they get it scheduled. Am I correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. The minute you click that link and you make that purchase, I've got that call on my calendar.
There you go. And it's good because it avoids that whole procrastination thing of, hey, I'll do it later. Now, the other part of this is that these calls are also recorded. They're put on the AI so that you get them and they're yours to keep and work with. I think that the ability to have a really focused coaching session on the performance test is a huge advantage. And I'll tell you, there's one more workshop coming. We'll announce it next week. But for now, you've got the performance test workshop and the writing workshop. I would really encourage you, if you are in the UBE, Georgia, or California, check this out. And you're going to love working with Amanda. If you haven't been on our group coaching call, you've probably heard her on our weekly webinars and podcasts. She's awesome. I don't know how else to put it. Not only is she really talented, she's a great teacher, as all of these folks are. And I think you're going to really love it. And she and I have been talking for a while about how this workshop would go. I know she's excited to do it. So please jump on that. One final announcement that I'm very excited about. We just finished our boot camp. Tracy and June and Brianna was a guest speaker. We had a great time. It was a terrific experience. And of course, right after that boot camp, inevitably, I started hearing from people saying, oh man, I'm so sorry, I missed boot camp. And when are you going to do the next one? We're ready to tell you that. We are doing our next boot camp on November 3rd and 4th, 2023, here in Parker, Colorado, just outside of Denver at the Pace Center. It was a lovely facility, terrific facility. And we have confirmed those dates. We're going to be back again, and we're going to stay at 15 students. I really liked that size. What about you, Tracy? Okay.
That was a perfect size for group discussion and breakout groups, and even some individual one-on-one time. I think more than that, it's very hard to build community over just 2 days. And the students that were there really did build community, not only with each other, but with us. And I think they all left feeling very prepared to move into the final phase of their studying.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It was terrific. I thought it was the best boot camp I've done probably in the 10 years we've been doing them. I'm excited about this upcoming boot camp in November. Now, here's the process. As before, you're going to have to pay an application fee, which is refundable if we don't accept you into the boot camp or for some reason aren't able to attend. The link is on our webpage if you go to celebrationbarreview.com. And by the way, we've updated and revamped our entire website. The website has a link for boot camp. You go there, you will see the link to apply. We are not automatically accepting people into boot camp. You're going to have to answer a few questions for us because we want the right mix of people. We want to make sure that this is the right group to attend. I would expect this November boot camp much higher participation just because of the timing. And it's first come, first served, at least in terms of our reviewing the applications. There's a lot of benefits, but a couple I want to point out. One is it includes the virtual bootcamp course, which we sell independently for $800. So that's pretty awesome. And that's got a ton of resources that we use at bootcamp and some extra pieces. And if you're already a photo reader, we're going to discount your bootcamp price by $400. If you're not a photo reader, we are going to include the full photo reading course for you. So it's a great deal, no matter how you cut it. And we really look forward to you joining us. Tracy will be back. June will be there. I'll be there. We'll have some more surprises and guest speakers and cool things. There were some wonderful surprises. There were some giveaways. Some people got coaching for free. There was some pretty cool stuff that happened. So check it out. If you're taking the bar exam in 2024, I don't know why you wouldn't be looking at Bootcamp. Book it now, get your travel set up now, be here in November 3rd and 4th. Okay. I love the fact that we keep innovating, we keep doing things. Some of you might have seen a press release that went out last week. It was in Bloomberg Wire and Forbes and a bunch of places. We just hit our 30th year anniversary. And that was a cool thing. I'm old, but 30 years and working with tens of thousands of students. Tracy said, is it really true? You really worked with tens of thousands? Yeah, the answer is, in those early years, we were cranking them out pretty heavily. I actually like the smaller size a whole lot better, but yeah, we have done that. And it's pretty amazing to think back on all of the things that have happened. I now find myself not only teaching the children of people that I helped, I actually have a few that are grandchildren. And that's just scary. That's what it is. Yeah, I know, it's just wrong. So
That's
anyway,
sick and wrong.
Anyway, many of you reached out to congratulate me when that story came out. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And we're glad to be here and doing the good work that I think needs to be done. All right. We're ready to get into questions? I think we are. First question I've got in this week was a student had received an email from the New York bar examiners that said, you're registered to sit for the July exam, but if you'd like to defer or postpone, we'll credit you. And Tracy said it's kind of like one of those airline fees where we bump you because we're overbooked. And the student said, are they trying to tell me something? Should I postpone? And my answer in all caps was absolutely not. If you have one of those golden tickets to the exam, hold on to it. If you're not ready, you're not ready. And I understand that, but we're still too far out, in my view, to be waving off of the test. And I want to turn that over to Brianna, because you work so much with people on their timing. There's plenty of time to get ready for this exam, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I completely agree. It's way too soon for you to even potentially think about deferring the July exam. Dig in. If you're not ready, we're still 2 months out, you guys. Of course, you're not going to feel ready. There is so much learning to be done between now and the exam, and you have plenty of time. Take a breath.
Yeah. And Tracy, you pointed out that this is probably a function of the exam being oversubscribed right now, and they're just trying to push people out the door. It feels that way, doesn't it?
Oh, I think so. I think that has nothing to do with the student that got this email and everything to do with the bar examiners and their inability to plan correctly.
Yeah. And we talked about this last week in DC, where they've instituted the mask wearing requirement, which I think is just a smokescreen for the same problem. They just have too many applicants. It's my sense that we are dealing with pent-up demand for the bar exam, that the COVID years have caused a problem. And now we've got this bubble of people that are saying, I think I want to get back in and take it.
I think it could also be from the fact that our pass rates are continually declining. So we've got more and more people retaking the next exam. So it's just this waterfall effect on top of it.
Yeah, that's really a good point. In California, 70% of the applicants in February were repeat takers, and then they pass only 27 or 28% of those. I think the waterfall effect is a good way to describe it. It's kind of like the escalator, right? It stacks up at the top. And so we're seeing this huge demand in these jurisdictions. Look, if you've got a seat to the exam in July, keep that sucker and get ready and deal with it. Don't give it up unless you absolutely have to. And if you have to, you do it later. And I realize there's some really nominal in most jurisdictions to postpone, but really don't be giving it up today unless there's a specific serious reason that you can't do it. I'm glad the student brought it to our attention, gives us a chance to talk about it, but there's plenty of time to get ready. And the other thing I would say about this, because it comes up all the time when I'm talking to people who are not yet in our course, and they come with the mindset of the big box bar review, and they say, I need 500 or 600 hours to study. You do if you're taking a course that requires you to memorize. But if you're building based on spaced or stepped repetition, our experience is 250 to 300 hours is sufficient. And that's doable right now. Even if you're just starting today, if June 1st is your start date, this is manageable. And if you've been studying at least a little bit before this, it's even more manageable. So I think it's important to keep that perspective in mind as you start thinking about your studies. The next question we got, a student asked about our product called BarMaps. And if you're not familiar with BarMaps, this is a kind of a hybrid product. It's actually got 3 components to it. The first part are mind maps that we've created for every subject, and they're available to you, and you can download them. You can modify them using a software program called MindMeister. They're also available to you and you can print them out and just use them that way. You can create your own handwritten mind maps, and I think that's super valuable. We then got our video lectures in BarMaps, and the video lectures have chapters in them so that you can find the specific part of a lecture that you really want to focus in on. So it's a time saver. And then the third component is that we take the audio soundtrack to those lectures and we do something called a fast finish, which is the opportunity to get through a 4-hour lecture in about 2 hours. And it's a wonderful tool. Now, this student wrote to ask us, are BarMaps only available for the multi-state, or can we include our state exam? And the answer is yes, it includes everything. If you're a registered student in our course, BarMaps are considerably less expensive than if you're not in the course. You can still buy BarMaps, but then we're selling you our lectures and some significant material. And so you could buy just multi-state or just Florida or just UBE or whatever it is. But if you're in our course, we have special pricing for you. I think BarMaps is a really good tool. Let me throw it to you, Brianna. Can you talk a little bit about BarMaps and how you think it could be used?
Yeah, BarMaps wasn't specifically available during my studies for my bar exam, but I'll tell you what, Jackson and all of our students, I wish it had been, because how cool, literally when I was creating my mind maps, I was taking the outlines and just recreating those and then adding to them. If I could have saved time to have that kind of platform ready for me, I would have done it in a heartbeat. And the fact that you can just go into the lectures and then do a deep dive that way and all of the other things that you just talked about, that is an incredible resource, an enormous time saver. And as your local time management coach, if you can spend that time more efficiently, you should absolutely take advantage of it. Yeah, it's an incredible tool that we've got in that big old box of celebration.
Yeah, it's fun creating these new tools. And I forget sometimes these are relatively new things that we've added, and we've been pretty proactive and aggressive about that. So check it out. Let me turn to some study questions here, because we got some good ones this week. A student said, I realized that my studying has been passive and not active. I thought that was a great way to describe what was going on. And they said, how can I make my study more active? I'm going to throw this back to Brianna in a minute, but let me give you some thoughts that occur to me. I think one of the most active ways to study right now is to mind map. We were just talking about BarMaps, but creating mind maps from the outlines, from the lectures, from the question practice really takes your learning to a different level. And you just heard Brianna talking about creating her own mind maps. That was really valuable to you when you were studying, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I know we've talked about this probably a long time ago, but I played with how my mind maps were going to be incorporated into my studies. Sometimes you can, if we're not note taking, sometimes you get a little lost during the lectures and stuff. Using it as a note taking strategy might be useful and beneficial for you. Going back to those mind maps and incorporating with those MBE questions you get right and wrong, and then incorporating the essay questions into that mind map. It's just this visual thing that you can do. You're taking the auditory in with the lectures, you're applying it, when you go in and do your essays and your MBEs, and then you have this visual representation on paper with those mind maps.
Yeah, I really think mind mapping is one of the best tools. The passive part is you just sit there and you're letting the lecture wash over you. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not as effective as doing something actively. Tracy, do you have any thoughts about this idea of active studying versus passive studying?
I do. I have an arbitration this afternoon where I've been hired as a private judge, and I used mind mapping this morning to outline the issues in the case. It's the first time that I have transferred over to use mind mapping in my active practice as an arbitrator and private judge. And it's amazing how quickly I got the information that I need and how I'll be able to access it this afternoon when issues come up. By doing the advance work up front, I feel so much more prepared to try to help this high conflict domestic relations case this afternoon.
That's a great example. I think that with the bar exam, the other part of active learning is practice, doing questions under time conditions, writing essays with the book closed under time conditions, doing your performance tests if that's part of your exam. All of those pieces really come together. There's a value to doing all of that. And then I would say, if you're a photo reader, that is active reading. That's active study. Passive study, to me, is reading the old-fashioned way, a sentence at a time, a line at a time, and your mind wanders, and you're, oh, what's the barista getting at Starbucks? And there's a lack of focus. Whereas with photo reading, and we really saw this in Bootcamp, people were really locked in. They're like, okay, I'm really reading this thing. And we saw people getting 60 and 70% of their multistate questions correct just after photo reading for a day in a subject. And so to me, that's really what active study works out to be. I think that ultimately active beats passive, and no matter what pieces you're using or when you're using them. And I was delighted that this student understood that they needed to be more active. I would encourage all of you to do that. There's a lot of active studying built into our course, and that's because we know it works better. Sitting in a big auditorium listening to a lecturer drone on for 8 hours a day is the height of passive study. There's a reason that doesn't work so well anymore. The exam just doesn't reward that kind of behavior, and getting into the point where you're just trying to memorize or sitting there and thinking, I'm typing out notes and somehow that's going to make a difference, probably doesn't. So good question. Thank you very much for that. Now, on the other end of this spectrum, the student said, I'm feeling overwhelmed with my study. I didn't get a passing score in April. I decided to jump right back in and take it in July. I started with my weakest subjects, but I think I don't have enough time to complete the entire course before the July exam, and that overwhelms me. I'm going to be curious to hear what Brianna says about this in particular, but I don't buy the premise. There's no reason that you can't be ready. It's June 1st. You've got time to do this work, and the feeling of overwhelm is self-induced. I think it's self-inflicted. There's no reason to feel overwhelmed. Overwhelm comes when you feel like you have to know everything, and you don't have to know everything. You've got to know what's important. And if you're following in our course, we're telling you what's important, and we're not saying everything is important. And I like the idea of taking your weakest areas first and working backwards. And if you don't get as much time in the areas that you did really well on in the last exam, that's not a crisis to me. And it's not a reason to feel overwhelmed. But let me throw that up to you, Brianna. What's your take when you saw that comment?
Yeah, I agree with you. First of all, overwhelm is completely 100% self-induced. Overwhelm is also a feeling that's brought on by fear. this student didn't receive favorable results in April, and now we're fearful that we're not going to be able to get through it and we're going to get the same result in July. So this student is reverting back into, okay, I want to study, but I don't want to study. I don't want to study. I don't want to study. So it's becoming this huge, big mountain, and you don't have to tackle the entire mountain at once. It's big. But the only way you're going to get to the top is taking it one step at a time and putting this big thing in little bite-sized pieces. So you have to set your schedule up so you can visually see that you can get through all of this material in time for the bar exam. We've already talked about the fact that there is plenty of time. If you've already listened to the lectures, listen to them at a faster pace. If that feels good for you, then dig deeper into those topics that were a little more difficult. Do more practice problems. Even if you started today based on Jackson's 300 hours of study, we've got 8 weeks. That's not even a 40-hour work week. You're not even having to put in 40 hours a week yet. So it's absolutely doable. You've got to ask yourself why you're feeling overwhelmed, and if it's because you're continually finding other distractions to avoid studying, because you just don't want to dig into it. You've got to schedule a call with June, do some mindset coaching, schedule a call with me. We will work through whatever that barricade is, because that's your overwhelm. Your overwhelm is not being able to knock down that concrete wall.
Yeah, I think calming the chaos with June is really helpful. The time management workshop is helpful. I also want to talk about a third-party resource that we're excited about. Learning Strategies, our partner on PhotoReading and Paraliminals, has just made available a brand new app called MindTracks, MindTrx.com. MindTracks.com is $99 a year right now. And you might think, well, that's a lot, but you're getting access to their entire library of paraliminals. That's over 75 paraliminal recordings, plus coaching sessions with Dr. Paul Sheely, plus a bunch of other stuff. It's unbelievable, because up until now, you were paying $30 to $40 a recording for one paraliminal. And the reason I'm thinking about it is there's a great paraliminal there called Overcoming Overwhelm. And believe me, I get overwhelmed here a lot, and it's a go-to for me, and it really helps. It's incredibly affordable. 1-year subscription, $99. Encourage you guys to go there. They're just releasing it to the public. You'll find the website. June, what's your take about this overwhelm piece?
I completely agree with Brianna. It's usually constant procrastination. And why do we procrastinate? Because of fear. It all boils down to what I did last time. The only way to move forward is to get past what happened last time. And the good news is you got through it. You're okay. You're here. And so again, bite-sized pieces. You don't have to do it all today or tomorrow. And also, when you set up your schedule, do not overestimate what you can do. Actually underestimate just a little bit and reach that goal. That will make you more confident. Remember, it's hard to take away in our mindset of goals. If we give ourselves too much and we don't hit that, our brain immediately goes, you didn't do it. But if we underestimate and we hit it, we can always add more. Again, a lot easier to give ourselves more than to take away. So set a schedule. You have to. It's like breathing, eating, brushing your teeth, going to work. Set a schedule and stick to it.
I like that.
And that will help, because everybody goes, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. Got a schedule. And then it's 6 o'clock. Okay, I start here. I'm here, and I can just go through it. And you don't have to think about it. It becomes muscle memory, which is what our course is based on.
Yeah. And use the resources. This is not our first rodeo. We know how to help you avoid overwhelm. So a lot of tools there.
Feeling overwhelmed, hit any of the group coaching calls.
Yes.
be around your peers and be around, you don't have to talk. It's helpful if you participate, but just hearing what other people are going through, it's helpful that you're not alone. Because while your spouse and your partners and your friends and your family are great, nobody knows what you're going through like another student.
We could talk about overwhelm for the rest of the hour easily. I want to get to a couple of other questions, but thank you all for weighing in. One student wrote, I'm wondering if I'm too old to be doing this. I don't seem to remember as much as I used to. Welcome to the club. This course is not built on memorization. I don't want you to memorize anything. Don't worry about it. You don't need to memorize. You're going to learn through repetition. If you're a photo reader, you're going to learn in a deeper way. We saw that at Bootcamp very clearly. And I think that's just one of those areas that people talk themselves into being worried about. So I just would tell you that, yeah, physiologically, you don't remember as much. The bad news would be if you're sitting in a big box bar review, you're screwed. If you're in our course, you're just fine because there's no mnemonics, there's no flashcards, there's no memorization. So don't waste your time trying to memorize. I'll just leave it at that. Another student wrote about mind maps, and they said, I'm struggling to get my mind maps done in the amount of time suggested. I think that might be due to the learning curve, just figuring out how to navigate the software. But I wonder if I'm putting too much time and detail into that without missing important information. I think all of us probably ought to weigh in on this. It's been my experience since we've started to lean into mind mapping that in general, people put in too much information. It becomes too wordy, too detailed. I think if you go back to our mind mapping illustrations in the course, you'll see that we are cautioning you against putting too much information in. You can always add more later, but I think of it as an all-you-can-eat buffet. Just make sure that on that first run through the line that you get the key items. You don't have to fill up the plate entirely. Brianna, what's your take on that with mind mapping?
I completely agree. There's two parts to this. So if you're not able to work on your mind map within the allotted time, you're putting too much information in, and you're forgetting about the fact that you're going to be adding to this thing throughout the entire course. You know, every time you touch that mind map, you're going to think of something and you're going to add to it and you're going to incorporate new details. Forget about trying to make it perfect. Yes, you're going to miss an important piece of information, but guess what? You're going to see the material again. You're going to be able to add to that mind map throughout the entire time. Just work with it. And one of the things I tell my students all the time, it's progress over perfection. Keep moving through the course, keep going. Don't waste too much time in any area. You're going to see it again.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. Tracy, what's your take?
This morning, when I was preparing for this arbitration, I had a 76-page report that I photo read and then had to go back and capture the issues out of it. Created a mind map in about 8 minutes. This is as specific as your mind map needs to be to start. It just has the basic issues. So today I have them grouped so that they make sense, because when you're looking at materials, it seems like sometimes it's all over the place. So they're grouped. And as I get information today, I will fill these in underneath these little branches in a different color. And then as I issue my rulings, I will use a yellow highlighter so that I make sure I've gotten to all the issues. That's as specific as a mind map needs to be. And I can now put this down and I could give you a recitation of every single issue I'm going to be dealing with this afternoon, just because I did this work. It doesn't take a long time, and it doesn't need to be pretty, and it doesn't need to be artistic, and it doesn't need to be wordy.
I love that. That's awesome. That's fabulous to see. Yeah. Don't put everything in your mind map. Just give yourself a little break there. And again, use BarMaps. If you don't have it, it's a great way to give you a head start on all of that. But if you stay in the time frame that we give you for an assignment, we identify how long, we call it note taking, but really we could say for mind mapping. Stay within that and you'll be fine. If you run out of time, you've been too detailed. Before we turn to Tracy's wrap-up comments, we got several questions from February 2024 bar takers are getting into the course. We've had them for a while, but we're starting to get some questions. And one of the questions was about boot camp. We've already talked about that, November 3rd and 4th here in Denver. If you're taking the bar exam in 2024, definitely want to have you consider doing that. But another student said, is there a point at which there's burnout or studying for something too long? I heard a law school professor mention that it was not a good idea to study too early for the bar because it loses momentum. This just chafes me. Law school professors know just about nothing about the bar exam. They would have no problem telling you that you should study for their course or their final for a year in advance because it's so fascinating and wonderful to them. But when it comes to the bar, suddenly they become experts. I got to say, that's just nonsense. There's no issue that I've seen about burnout for this. You don't need to study full-time for a year. If you're taking the bar exam in February, you could be studying 10 hours a week right now. If you're taking the bar exam this July, obviously, as Brianna has mentioned, you got to up your number of hours, but it's still not an outrageous number and it's not full-time. This burnout thing is a false flag. It's something that I think just gets put out there, and it's this trope that we've got about you'll burn out if you study for too long. That's nonsense. If you're excited and learning and growing, you're not going to burn out. And by the way, this is your profession, and we will be constantly learning and growing. So if you're going to be burned out on the bar exam, listen, get into medical school or do something else, because this is the life that you've chosen. Another student for 2024 said, how much do I need to cover every week? There's 9 months until the February 2024 bar exam. You've heard Brianna talk about planning it out. I'm not sure that you have to plan out 9 months, but I would say take 10% of the course syllabus and get 10% done in June, 10% more done in July, and so on. And then you'll ramp up as you get closer to your exam. But don't be a victim of overscheduling. And what I mean by that is life is going to happen. Things will occur. There will be disruptions. I can remember very vividly when Brianna was studying and she had it all down to the minute, and then one of the kids would get sick, or the dog would throw up, or I can't remember all the things that happened. And you had to pivot and change your plan on the fly, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the one thing about setting up your schedule. You can have it all planned out, and then you can't ever plan for the unknown. So you absolutely have to have that ability to be able to step away, let life happen, and then come back to the table and then regroup and reschedule if you have to, because life events do happen that you can't dream up, and it's just, that's life. I come into the office and I have a game plan ready to go, and it never fails. I'll have several clients with bombs going off, and my entire day gets completely turned upside down. But it's not going to prevent me from coming back the next morning with a game plan.
You're not burned out? You're not burned out, Brianna?
No, not at all. You're not going to get burnt out if you focus on the goal, if you focus on the why, if you focus on what your life is going to be looking like after you spend that time just investing in yourself. You're not going to get burnt out.
Okay. Now we're going to see how agile Tracy is. I have no idea what wiper blades means, but I want to see if Tracy can segue from burnout and all of these other topics to wiper blades. Is it possible?
I think it is.
Okay.
A few days ago, I drove my car, and it's a fairly new car. I don't really understand how it works, but I drove it through a self-drive car wash. And there might be a sign that says, make sure your windshield wipers are turned off. I'm not completely sure. And there might have been a little bit of driver error here. And again, I'm not quite so sure. But when I came through the car wash on the other side, it didn't have any wiper blades. And I went up to where they were hand wiping the car. And here comes this kid with my 2 broken wiper blades and says, here you go, ma'am. It's really not our fault. Have a nice day. So I panicked because I didn't know what to do. It's a new car. I don't know how to buy wiper blades or put them on. It's not in my lane, right? It's not something that I am familiar with. But I knew that my son-in-law knows all things about all cars. And so I texted him and said, I need help. This is what's happened. What do I do? Do I go to the dealership? Do I go to an auto parts store? What do I buy? And he texted back to me some specific instructions that I followed. So I went to the auto parts store and I brought in my broken windshield wiper blades and a very sad face and a very limpy walk. And I just looked very dependent. And I walked up and there was this young kid that was very tall and skinny. And I said, I don't have any wiper blades. Are they broken? Or are they just broken off or what? And he looks at them, oh, so no, these are broken. You're going to need new ones. I'm like, I don't even know what brand to buy or anything. He says, I'm going to take care of you. And so he went over and he got some wiper blades and he asked me how much I wanted to spend. And I told him, not bottom of the line, but not maybe top of the line, maybe somewhere 80% up. So he got me some blades, brought it back. We did the transaction. I said, can you help me put them on my car? I don't know how to do that. And he said, of course, we're going to take care of you. So he went outside. And the next thing is we couldn't figure out how to get the wiper blades up this way so you can attach the doohickey on it. And he tried and he didn't know, and he's looking around for help. And a guy at the auto service store next door who was on his break saw the trouble that we were having. He came over, got in the car, got the wiper blades up, showed the kid how to put the wiper blades on, showed me how to do all of that. And I was so grateful to these two gentlemen because I didn't have any idea what to do here. So why am I bringing this to you? Because you don't have to do this all on your own. You can't expect to come into this new way of studying and just get it. If you need help, and I think we all need help sometimes because it's out of our lane, for gosh sakes, get the help. Take these classes that are being offered. Jackson offered you, I'm his accountability manager. I'm going to really have a speech to him next Monday because he offered you these two classes for $450. I would have said maybe $550, okay? But he offered them to you for $450. Why aren't you taking these classes? Why aren't you getting one-on-one time with Brianna? Why aren't you getting one-on-one time with Amanda? Why aren't you signing up for personal coaching? Why aren't you coming to boot camp? You do not know how to do this. You went through law school for 3 or 4 years. You do not know how to take the bar exam. It's a completely different animal. You might know what a wiper blade is, but trust me, without some nice looking people who know what they're doing, you are never going to get that sucker in place. And when the rainstorm comes, you are going to be sitting under the overpass saying, oh me, oh my, I am not prepared for the day.
Oh, man, that's classic. Junior, I don't know how you're going to follow that, but go ahead.
Here's my take. If this is your passion, this is what you're here to do. This is your love. There, you will never burn out. When it is your true passion, you'll go till your wheels fall off. You will keep grasping and reaching and going and moving. If this is truly your passion. And that's why Brianna said your why is so important, because when it does get dark and it does suck and it's horrible, I know what I'm talking about because Jackson knows I have a little side business and there's been some days where I'm like, what am I? But when it's really your drive to do what you want to do, you will do it. You will make it a priority. You'll figure it out. You'll find a way. Just like Tracy with her wipers. She found a way. She didn't just sit there and cry and go, what do I do? She reached out. She asked, she found a way to get what she needed to move forward.
That's great. I'm really glad she didn't call me because I know nothing about wiper blades either. Yeah, that wasn't even a possibility.
She knew better than to call you.
Yeah, I know. So this has been a great opportunity to talk about all these things. Thank you, Tracy. That is a fabulous story. And believe me, if you haven't seen Tracy do her sad face, it's really pathetic. Brianna, thank you for being here. Any final thoughts you've got before we check in for next week?
I feel like one of the things that we really just hit on this session is all of the tools in your toolbox. You know, you don't have to use all of them, but just to bring in some of the things that we've talked about in the past, be true and recognize with yourself where you need help. Ask for help. Pull the tools out of the toolbox. If you don't know which tool to use, reach out to us. Send Jackson an email, June an email. They will help you figure out which tool to grab and what's going to help you cross the finish line. So just, we're all here to help. We all want to see you succeed.
Absolutely. Listen, it's been great. It's been a great session. Thank you all. Thanks. We'll be back to you next Wednesday. And we're just excited to get into the study now for July. It's definitely that time, and plenty of time, plenty of resources. We're glad to help you. And let's make sure that those wiper blades are working nice and steady as we go along. We'll see you all next Wednesday. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.